Huge crowds of people marched in several parts of the Sudanese capital, Khartoum, and other cities on Thursday in demonstrations against the prospect of military rule. The latest protests come as the crisis in the country's troubled transition from authoritarian rule deepened. The military has shared power with civilian parties in the transitional authority since the removal of President Omar al-Bashir in 2019 in a popular uprising after 3 decades of his rule. A coalition of rebel groups and political parties have aligned themselves with the military. Civilian leaders say that this would amount to a coup and that the military aims to install a government it can control. Political analyst Mohammed Fazari gives some context to the latest developments.
Sudan is so serious. The Sudanese Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok has earlier mentioned that Sudan faces the most dangerous crisis in its history. That's why he said that the difference between the military and civilians has come near to approach of the end of the military period to the Sovereignty Council. As you know that in 2019, when the constitutional document has been signed, that they divided the rule between the civilians and the military. So the transitional period will start with the military and end by the civilians.
Pro-democracy protesters, analysts and politicians in the country are worried the recent rise in tensions between the military and civilian factions of the transitional government could lead to a power grab by the army, warning of a scenario similar to the 2013 coup in Egypt.
According to me and many observers, that the Sudanese people has been divided more than ever before. Some of pro and against the military, pro and against the civilians. So you can see armed movement, some tribal leaders, and other Sudanese people on grassroots level supporting uh, the military. But people in general and the elites and the youth of the revolutions, the women, and all the intellectuals people supporting a civilian-led government.
Mohammed shared insight into the extent of responsibility of the civilian component, the Forces for Freedom and Change of the Sovereign Council in the current crisis.
The civilian function of the government, and I mean here the FCC, they believe that there is a huge challenges facing the Sudanese government and the transitional period. That's why they failed to satisfy and to fulfill all the obligations of the transitional period. Among these challenges, that they failed to form legislative council and also constitutional court beside 12 commissions, which is commission of election, commission of anti-corruption, and others commissions still being suspended. All of these make the people on the grassroots level blame FCC for failure to satisfy their needs, besides the failure of for solving the problem of economic situation which is facing the Sudanese government. As you know that the price hikes.
Sudan's longtime leader Omar al-Bashir was toppled by the military after weeks of mass protest in 2019. But as the events of the past 2 years have demonstrated, there was little consensus on how to move forward after that. As of now, that consensus is proving dangerously elusive.
Hello. Yes, I was trying to stop some people who were entering through social media so that will just disturbing our conversation. Right now, I'm ready for your
Can I ask the
question.
question again?
I, yes, sure.
Mohammed, what is to make of the apparent differences between the civilian component of the Sovereign Council of Sudan and the military component? How serious are these differences and what could they mean for Sudan?
Yeah, for sure, the differences between the military and the civilians in Sudan is so serious. The Sudanese Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok has earlier mentioned that Sudan faces the most dangerous crisis in its history. That's why he said that the difference between the military and civilians has come near to approach of the end of the military period to the Sovereignty Council. As you know that in 2019, when the constitutional document has been signed, that they divided the rule between the civilians and the military. So the transitional period will start with the military and end by the civilians. So according to analysts and many lawmakers here, think that within coming months of November will mark the end of the military function in the government, so that the civilians should take over the government. From before that, there is a failed coup d'état that started in the 21st of September. This is marks also the beginning of the crisis between the military and civilians, because they are exchanging the accusations between the most component in the government. That's why everyone try to accuse each other of being hijacking the government, and the transitional government suffers many and serious challenges, among which that the crisis of economic situation, which affected most of the Sudanese citizens, and also the deterioration in the security in Sudan, and so many things that make these things, all of the parts of the Sudanese government try to complain and exchange accusations among each others.
Muhammad, does it appear to you and some people, I mean, is there a feeling in Khartoum that the military just doesn't want to hand over power to the civilians as agreed in 2019?
There are voices here and there that military governments won't hold on power for a longer time, and that's why I think that the coup d'etat that happened in September, it is just like a camouflage of the military to hold on the power for a long time and not to hand over the power for the civilians. But the other side think that there is a failure for both the government components, with the military and the civilians, due to fragile situation in Sudan. Other political parties and armed movement, which had recently signed the agreement in Juba, they supporting the military, and also the sitting around the Republican Palace, shows that many people ask the military to intervene and to form military council to rule the transitional government. According to their opinion, think that the civilians fails to lead the Sudan into a prosperous state, as it was inspiration of the people who protest against the former regime of President Omar al-Bashir.
Interesting point you make, Muhammad. How strong is the support for the army now? Because we have seen protesters in support of the army, but there are also voices, civilian voices, which say the army cannot be allowed to continue in power after November. But how much support from the population exists for the army now?
According to me and many observers, that the Sudanese people has been divided more than ever before. Some of pro and against the military, pro and against the civilians. So you can see armed movement, some tribal leaders, and other Sudanese people on grassroots level supporting uh, the military. But people in general, and the elites, and the use of the revolutions, the women, and all the intellectuals people supporting a civilian-led government toward building democratic and prosperous country in the future. I think that this is one of their strong inspiration in the revolution, that to have democratic civilian states.
To what extent, Muhammad, are the civilians, the FFC, to what extent are the civilians in the Sovereign Council to blame for the current impasse, for the current crisis in Sudan?
Yeah, people blame the FCC for failure of doing or fulfilling the obligations of the constitutional document that signed 2 years ago. Among them, that the Legislative Council still suspended. Also, the Constitutional Court still not established. Beside the 12 commissions, this is according to constitutional document, should be formed within a few weeks or months. So right now, 2 years passed without any forming of these constitutional of the state. So the hierarchy of the state is still, we have two councils, only the Sovereignty Council and the Cabinet Council. So the government is working like stumbling without moving very properly, because there is no executive council to ask ministers to assess, to evaluate the
Muhammad,
government
sorry,
performance during the.
Muhammad, sorry, we had an issue with your connection there, so I'm going to repeat the question. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay. To what extent, Muhammad, is the civilian component of the Sovereign Council to blame for the current crisis? What responsibility do the members of the FFC share for the current crisis in Sudan at the moment?
The civilian function of the government, and I mean here the FCC, they believe that there is a huge challenges facing the Sudanese government and the transitional period. That's why they failed to satisfy and to fulfill all the obligations of the transitional period. Among these challenges, that they failed to form legislative council and also constitutional court, beside 12 commissions, which is commission of election, commission of anti-corruption, and others commissions still being suspended. All of these make the people on the grassroots level blame FCC for failure to satisfy their needs, beside the failure of for solving the problem of economic situation which is facing the Sudanese government. As you know, that the price hikes and there are a lot of challenges facing Sudan. Among them, the economic and the security situation has been deteriorated among the 10 months. So all of these things make the people blame the FCC of failure to achieve the government, the people inspiration and their dreams that led in 2019 when the two sides signed the civilian military-led government.
Lastly, Mohammed, where is Omar al-Bashir and his supporters or sympathizers in this equation? Are they somewhere waiting to take advantage of this crisis, or are they partly responsible for the crisis? And what does this mean for Omar al-Bashir and those that are still sympathetic to him, or those that are members of his party, the NCP?
Yeah, the Aussie regime still on the scene, but it's waiting for the opportunity to be inside. Some people think that the people sitting, still working in the sitting, strongly support those people there, and also any attempt for deteriorating the situation in the country will be accused by the NCP and the regime of the former President Omar Bashir. But all of them here are in the prison in Kobar. But the situation is now divided between FCC A and FCC B. This is most recent terminology being called here in Sudan, because they mean by FCC A is the FCC is a coalition government right now, which is signed the document, and also ruled the government since 2019, and FCCB is the new split that took place last month, and also led by the two major armed movement government, which is JEM, Justice and Equality Movement, led by Gabriel Ibrahim, and Sudan Liberation Movement, led by Meni Arkumenawi. These are the major movement in Sudan, and as the contradictory here, both sides signed and they are a part of the government. That's why people think that the government asks the government to resolve itself.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. Interesting analysis there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed.
Thank you.
And I'll be coming to you regarding when we need to commission some news reports from Sudan.
Oh, thank you.
I will be contacting you to nominate some freelancers to work for us.
Thank you. You're welcome.
But thank you very much. This was very beautiful analysis, and you really are on the ground, and you know the developments going on. Thank you very much, Mohammed, and have a good evening there in Khartoum.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.
Mm. Yeah, it's finished. Thank you. Okay, I see.